Karen had dedicated 16 years to Hollowgate Systems, helping build their operations department from scratch and managing every challenge with precision. But the company had changed. New leadership, new priorities. Megan Russo, a younger executive, was brought in, and now, it seemed, it was Karen's turn to be replaced. The Zoom call was abrupt. Megan told Karen, after 16 years, your skills no longer align with our vision. Your access ends today. Karen, calm and composed, responded, I understand completely. Megan seemed relieved by Karen's professional tone. She was used to this process, but Karen had already prepared for this moment. Only 6 months ago, Hollowgate had undergone a major restructuring, and the new leadership was quick to change things. Megan, hired from outside, didn't bother to understand the systems Karen had worked so hard to build. Now, Megan and her team were dismantling everything Karen had created. The unexpected Zoom meeting, with Megan and Jessica from HR, was a final formality. Karen was asked to return her laptop by Wednesday, and exit paperwork would be sent soon. When the call ended, Karen closed her laptop and sat back in her chair, absorbing the moment. 16 years reduced to a few minutes. But what Megan didn't know was that Karen had already accepted a new position as Director of Operations at Ironwood Forge, Hollowgate's biggest competitor. 3 weeks earlier, Douglas Williams, the CEO of Ironwood, had reached out to Karen after hearing about the changes at Hollowgate. They'd crossed paths at industry events, and Douglas saw an opportunity. Karen, he had said, Hollowgate is making a mistake if they're sidelining you. We could use your expertise. 1 week later, Karen had a job offer, a substantial raise, a directorial role, and the freedom to build her own team. She signed the contract the day before her meeting with Megan. Karen glanced at her phone. 2 texts had come in during the meeting, one from Tom, her husband, and one from Douglas, confirming her new position. Karen smiled. Megan had no idea what was about to unfold. Karen had met Tom at a tech conference years ago. They connected immediately, and within months, they were married. When Karen moved to Minneapolis to work at Hollowgate, it was Tom who supported her every step of the way. He understood the tech world as well as she did, and their partnership was solid. In the early years, Hollowgate had been a smaller company, and Karen had been able to make a real impact. But everything changed when Harold Wilson, the CEO who had been her biggest supporter, retired. Vivian Torres, a new executive with a reputation for aggressive growth, took over. She quickly brought in her own people, including Megan, who was placed above Karen. Torres had announced at an all-hands meeting, we need fresh perspectives, new blood to take us to the next level, and with that, Karen was slowly pushed out. When Karen called Tom after the Zoom meeting, he was furious on her behalf, but Karen remained calm. It's fine, she assured him, this just gives me the weekend to relax before starting at Ironwood on Monday. Tom knew her too well. You're handling this remarkably well, he said. I've had time to prepare, Karen replied, and I've got a little satisfaction knowing Megan thinks she's gotten rid of me, but she's only created a much bigger problem for Hollowgate. Later that evening, as Karen sorted through materials from her time at Hollowgate, she reflected on the last 16 years. A photo of her original team caught her eye, 5 of them in Hollowgate's first office, celebrating their first big client. Harold Wilson stood proudly in the center, his arm around Karen's shoulders. Only Karen had stayed until now. Her former colleagues had moved on. As she looked at the photo, she wondered if any of them would be interested in joining her at Ironwood. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Natalie, one of her former men's at Hollowgate, who had left the company months ago. Heard the news. Their loss. Drinks tomorrow at Maxwell's. Karen smiled and responded, I've got news to share. Natalie had grown under Karen's mentorship, and when she left Hollowgate, many clients had asked about her absence. Karen suspected Torres and Megan had underestimated her value, just as they had Karen's. Karen spent the evening carefully sorting papers, ensuring nothing confidential was taken. Around midnight, an email from Jessica in HR arrived with her exit paperwork, a final thank you from Hollowgate. The generic, cold message stung more than she expected. As she prepared to join Tom in bed, he remarked, I've never seen you so calm after a major change. Karen slid under the covers. That's because this isn't the end, it's the beginning. Tom agreed, but he also knew how much Karen had built at Hollowgate. You dedicated so much to that company, it can't be easy to walk away. I'm not walking away from what I built, Karen said. I'm taking the best parts with me, the knowledge, The experience, the relationships. Hollowgate may not need me, but Ironwood will. The next evening, at Maxwell's, Karen met Natalie, who had already ordered drinks, the latest casualty of the Torres regime, Natalie said with a smile. Former casualty, Karen corrected, current victor. Karen shared her new role at Ironwood with Natalie, who was thrilled. The look on Megan's face when she finds out, you have to be enjoying this. I'm not doing this for revenge, Karen said, though she couldn't completely suppress a smile. Well, Natalie grinned, the revenge is a nice bonus. After a few more drinks, Karen slid a folder across the table. I want you to join me at Ironwood, Senior Operations Manager, 20% salary increase over your current position. Natalie hesitated but was impressed by the offer. Karen reassured her that she wasn't poaching, since Natalie had left Hollowgate months ago. Still, Natalie took her time considering. I'll call you tomorrow, Natalie promised. As the night went on, Karen received a text from Victoria Petersham, CEO of Hollowgate's first major client. Karen, I heard about your departure. Let's talk Monday. Important decisions to make. Natalie raised an eyebrow. Looks like Hollowgate's problems are just beginning. Indeed, Karen agreed, and it didn't take long. The weekend was looking much more interesting than expected. The first day at Ironwood was a whirlwind. Douglas greeted me warmly, shaking my hand. Karen, right on time, ready to meet your team? Absolutely, I replied, following him to a large conference room. Inside, about 15 people were gathered. Everyone, Douglas said, this is Karen Delaney, our new Director of Operations. Many of you know her by reputation. We're lucky to have her here. The room responded with a warm welcome. Some faces were familiar from industry events, while others were new to me. The group seemed well-rounded, a mix of seasoned professionals and newer team members. It was clear the operations department had been carefully built. We have one more person joining us today, Douglas continued, turning to the door as it opened. Natalie stepped inside, a little nervous but composed. This is Natalie Chen, our new Senior Operations Manager, who'll be reporting directly to Karen. Inside, I felt a rush of excitement. Natalie had made her decision. After the introductions, Douglas gave us a tour of the facilities, and we ended at my office. It was a corner space with huge windows. A smaller office next to mine would be Natalie's. I'll leave you to get settled, Douglas said. We have a leadership meeting at 11 to discuss strategy. Before he left, he added, Victoria Petersham called this morning. She'd like to meet with us tomorrow. I nodded, not surprised. I'll be prepared. Once Douglas left, Natalie stepped into my office and closed the door behind her. So, she said, excitement bubbling over, we're really doing this. We are, I confirmed, smiling. Thank you for joining me. Are you kidding? She replied. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. She looked around at the office, and not a bad place to land. Not bad at all, I agreed. But then Natalie grew serious. You should know, Hollowgate is in chaos. Word of your departure spread like wildfire on Friday afternoon. The operations team is panicking. Megan doesn't understand half the systems you built. This was valuable information. How do you know all this? I asked. I still have friends there, Natalie said with a small smile, including Jason in IT. Jason Hall had worked at Hollowgate almost as long as I had. He ran IT with quiet efficiency and had always been an ally. Is he looking to make a move too? I asked carefully. Natalie shrugged. He didn't say, but he did mention how frustrating it is to watch Torres and Megan mess with systems they don't understand. Noted. I needed to proceed carefully. If I recruited one person, it might be overlooked, but taking an entire team would raise suspicion. Let's focus on getting settled here first, I said. We can talk about recruits later. Natalie nodded and stood up to leave. One more thing, she added. Megan's been calling and emailing me all weekend, trying to figure out how to access your operational documentation. I couldn't help but smile. That's unfortunate for her. You didn't leave a transition plan, Natalie said. I documented everything meticulously, I replied, but understanding that documentation requires context Megan never bothered to learn. The leadership meeting at 11 introduced me to Ironwood's executive team. Douglas had put together a strong group, experienced professionals who asked thoughtful questions and were genuinely interested in my vision. Karen, Douglas asked near the end of the meeting, how do you approach client transitions, especially when companies are switching from competitors? This was my chance to talk about what everyone was thinking, how we could capture Hollowgate's clients. The key is continuity, I began. Clients leave when they feel their needs aren't being met or when they lose confidence in their provider's stability. Our job is to show them we understand their needs and can meet them without any disruption. I explained my strategy: personalized transition plans, dedicated implementation teams, and regular check-ins. What we won't do, I emphasized, is badmouth Hollowgate or any other competitor. We focus on what makes us great, not their weaknesses. The leadership team nodded in approval. This was professional. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find an email from Victoria Petersham confirming our meeting for the next morning. With 16 years of history between us, I knew this wasn't just a casual check-in. Victoria was seriously considering moving Petersham Industries' business from Hollowgate to Ironwood. As soon as I settled into my chair, my phone rang. It was Megan Russo. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, the notification appeared. I pressed play, curiosity getting the better of me. "Karen, this is Megan Russo. We need to discuss the transition of your operational knowledge. Some of the documentation is unclear. Please call me back as soon as possible." Deleted. 5 minutes later, a text came through from the same number. "This is unprofessional. The company needs your cooperation for a smooth transition." I smiled to myself. Megan was starting to realize that firing someone without a proper handover had consequences. Later, Natalie joined me to review Ironwood's operational processes. She had already pinpointed areas for improvement. "Their system works," she explained, "but it's not optimized. We could implement the changes we developed at Hollowgate to increase efficiency by at least 20%. "Great," I said, "draft a proposal. We'll present it to Douglas by the end of the week." My phone buzzed again, another call from Jessica at Hollowgate. I ignored it. "They're getting desperate," Natalie remarked. "They're discovering that institutional knowledge can't be passed on in a day," I replied, "especially when they didn't value it enough to plan properly." "Are you going to call them back?" "No, I've fulfilled my contractual obligations. I don't owe them anything more." As the day went on, the calls and texts kept coming, from Megan, from Jessica, and then, at 4:30 p.m., a message from Vivian Torres herself. Each message grew more urgent. The last text from Torres read, "Karen, this is Vivian Torres. We may have been hasty in our decision. Please call to discuss possible arrangements." Too little, too late. By the end of my first day, I had a comprehensive strategy for operational improvements, meetings with key team members scheduled, and was prepared for the next day's discussion with Victoria Petersham. As I packed up to leave, Douglas stopped by my office. "Productive first day?" he asked. "Very," I replied. "I heard Hollowgate is desperately trying to reach you. News travels fast in this industry." "Always," Douglas agreed, leaning against the doorframe. "Victoria Petersham called again this afternoon. She's bringing her CTO to our meeting tomorrow." That was significant. If Victoria was bringing her CTO, it meant she was seriously considering making the move. "We'll be ready," I assured him. The meeting with Victoria Petersham and her CTO, Andrew Michaels, was professional but warm. We quickly fell into the rhythm of our long-standing professional relationship. "I'll be direct, Karen," Victoria said after the initial pleasantries. "Hollowgate's recent changes have us concerned. When we heard you'd been let go, our concern turned into alarm." Andrew nodded in agreement. "The systems you built are integral to our operations. No one understands them like you do. Ironwood is prepared to offer you a comprehensive transition package," Douglas said smoothly. "Karen would personally oversee the implementation." Victoria and Andrew exchanged a look. "We'd need assurances of continuity," Victoria said cautiously. "You'd have them," I promised, "and improvements to the existing systems that I've been working on but couldn't implement at Hollowgate." The meeting lasted 2 hours, and by the end, it was clear, we had a deal in principle. "We'll need to review this with our legal team," Victoria said as they gathered their things, "but barring any contractual issues, I believe we're on the same page." As they left, Douglas turned to me with a nod of approval. That was masterful. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern continued with 3 more major Hollowgate clients, each citing similar concerns: instability, lack of confidence in the new leadership, and their trust in me personally. By the end of my 3rd week at Ironwood, we had successfully transitioned 4 of Hollowgate's largest accounts, representing 30% of their annual revenue. The news made waves across the industry. Ironwood's stock rose, while Hollowgate's fell. Analysts began questioning Torres's leadership, and rumors circulated that Megan had been demoted. Hollowgate's operations team was in chaos, struggling to maintain service levels for remaining clients. It wasn't personal, just business, but I couldn't help feeling a sense of satisfaction. The final blow came a month later, when Jason Hall, Hollowgate's IT director, requested a meeting. "I've been with Hollowgate almost as long as you were," he said when we met for coffee, "but it's not the same company anymore. You're considering a move," I said, not as a question. Jason nodded. "And not just me, there are at least 6 senior team members ready to jump ship." This was huge. These were key players with deep institutional knowledge. "Ironwood would be interested," I said carefully, "but we need to handle this delicately." "Of course," Jason agreed, "we're professionals." Within a month, Ironwood had added Jason and 4 other key Hollowgate veterans to the team. Each brought valuable skills and client relationships. Every transition was carefully managed. The industry took notice. Investment firms started questioning Hollowgate's viability in light of the talent and clients walking out the door. 6 months after my firing via Zoom, Hollowgate announced a major restructuring. Vivian Torres resigned as CEO, and Megan Russo was among those let go. Douglas found me in my office, reviewing quarterly reports, when the news broke. "Congratulations," he said, dropping a newspaper on my desk with the headline, "Hollowgate Systems announces major restructuring. CEO departs." "I didn't do this for revenge," I said, though deep down, I knew the truth. "No," Douglas agreed with a knowing smile, "you did it because you're the best operations director in the business, and they were fools to let you go." "Their loss," I said, "our gain." Revenge may not have been the goal, but it sure felt sweet. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how far I'd come, from being unexpectedly dismissed to building something better at Ironwood. I'd moved beyond personal vindication to professional reinvention.